We are here live on both channels simultaneously, our Nevada Judges and Natalie Lawyer Chick. Go ahead, introduce yourself, and I'm thinking that your audience being 16 times larger, you should take the lead on this.
Okay, so I guess they can see us now. Oh yeah, they
They
can.
can,
Okay.
yeah.
Hi everybody. My name is Natalie. If you are a viewer from our Nevada Judges, nice to meet you. If you're one of my channel members, thank you so much for coming and checking out this unique live stream that we're doing tonight. And when we're done here, please go and check out our Nevada Judges. They have amazing information there, great videos, and they are what provided me the content for the Michael McDonald series, which a lot of you guys really loved. So,
So,
hi.
hi, good to see you. I think I'm pretty sure you were the first channel to actually cover one of our cases. And it was exciting because I considered that to be a milestone to see something like that occur. And I believe you were aware we were retweeting your stuff, republishing your stuff, and we shared your, I think it was, they weren't live streams, they were records. You recorded
Mhm.
and published three different parts, I believe. What was it that made you want to cover the state of Nevada versus Michael McDonald?
So I think it was a couple of years ago is when, before I started doing reaction content on my YouTube channel, is when I became aware of the whole Michael McDonald thing. And I came across it completely by accident. You know, I'm an attorney, my husband's an attorney. We like watching court content even in our downtime. We're nerds like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the first video that I ever saw of his related to him was where he was representing himself in something to do with like modification of the custody, and the things that were recanted or recounted as the history of the case was so amazing to us. So I forgot all about it when when I revived my channel and started doing reaction content. And then I think the criminal trial was starting.
Mm-hmm.
And then so that intersected into my area of practice. Excuse me, I have a sore throat. That's why I'm eating a lozenge. Excuse me.
It's all right.
Yeah, so it intersected from family law into criminal law because now he was charged with criminal charges.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I subscribed to your channel because you were bringing the stuff like live
Mm-hmm.
in real time, and no one else was doing that. And so that's what got me into it. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely, as soon as this criminal case is over with, I'm definitely going to be reacting to this.
Yeah. You know, I kind of, that was our first ever coverage period, the state of Nevada versus Michael McDonald, and it didn't really give us a good indicator as to generally what the public would think of our coverage, because to this day, that is still the number one most viewed series on our channel by like it's more than the rest of all of the videos combined times like two. And so it might be just that it's a trial. It might be just that that particular case had such a ratcheting up of social media presence. That was one of the reasons why I even decided to cover it, was because it seemed to me like Mr. McDonald himself and some of these other groups were building up a lot of a following. So there was already a following there, and I kind of
Yeah.
decided to start covering that one. One of the things that I recall you mentioning was that you started, and I believe your videos also covered these. You started further back from the child custody divorce action itself. Is
Yeah.
it common for cases like this to spill over from domestic relations matters? I'm starting to wonder about that.
So in my personal experience, yes. Yes, unfortunately. A lot of the times what precipitates a separation will be a domestic violence event. So for example, in my office, I work for a public defender's office, and we have both criminal defense, and we have representation of parents in something called child in need of assistance, or parental defense is what we call it now. We used to call it CINA, child in need of assistance. And that's where the parents are facing like the state taking away their kids
Mm.
in relation to their criminal cases. And so that will give you some preview that even if it's not elevated that bad, family law and criminal law often have like a permeable barrier between them where people will cross over one into the other.
Yeah, I'm actually very interested now in trying to cover both. I wasn't able to do that at the time with State of Nevada versus Michael McDonald. The channel being so new, the idea of a media request coming from a YouTube channel was difficult, I think, for the judges to get used to, and so I didn't really want to push that boundary. But later on, now I'm actually trying to. There's another case with criminal proceedings that spilled over from a domestic relations matter, a state. Anyway, we're now trying to cover some of those. I think you called it in need of services. I think we call them abuse and neglect proceedings here. What do you think? I mean, do you think that that is something that would be very helpful to organize, or covering these types of cases, and also even the public, for us to actually cover both the criminal and the domestic relations matter?
Yes, especially because there are ways to ensure the safety of the children or the privacy of the children. Like, for example, when I covered the whole Michael McDonald case from the domestic relations or family law portion leading into the criminal portion, I never mentioned the children. I never mentioned their names. And you don't need to, in order to talk about there are minor children involved. This is what the dispute is in relation to the minor children. You don't need to mention their names, their medical issues, where they go to school, any of that, in order to talk about the controversy between the parties. So as long as you can protect the privacy of minors, then I think that, again, sunshine is the best disinfectant. And, people have a lot of issue with, what are they called? Like, child CPS, Child Protective Services, getting involved and taking kids away, or dads not getting custody of kids. A lot of people cry that there's corruption within these systems. The best way to make sure that, the system is upheld is that it's in the open. Like, I don't like that in where I practice. A lot of the times they're very hesitant to have the media present in court, and they curtail it and limit it. I'm not a fan of that. I think the media and the public have a right to see what happens, because these are public proceedings. We don't have private courts in this country.
Yeah, I strongly agree. And I feel like at this point it's in the government's best interest, because the default position is no longer to just automatically trust the judiciary. Now, when I see people looking at cases, they often fill in the blanks adversely to the good. They just assume. So one of the interesting things about the comprehensive coverage of State v. McDonald is that I didn't see a whole lot of antagonism towards the attorneys, with the exception of Craig Mueller, overall, and the judge. And I think that it may be different when people just read from an article versus actually see it from beginning to end. Speaking of that, what do you think about defense attorneys' continuous objections to electronic coverage? Is that something that jumped out to you as normal, or just curious?
I thought that, in this particular, I thought that his objection, so if, for those of you that are watching this that either didn't see my coverage or don't know what we're talking about State of Nevada versus Michael McDonald. He was represented by Craig Mueller. And our Nevada judges was, could you introduce yourself to my channel?
Yeah, sure.
Or any of that. So please do.
Yes, yeah.
I want you to go check out your channel. There's so much information, and then I'll continue answering.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Alexander Falcone. I just go by Alex, and I'm the administrator of the channel, Our Nevada Judges. It actually didn't start out as a channel. It started out as a website that tracked statistics on how often judges make mistakes in Nevada. And that's all it did for quite a while, from 2014 to 2019. Then in 2019, we started providing electronic coverage of these cases, and our first case was State of Nevada versus Michael McDonald. I'm not an attorney. I'm actually a software engineer. This channel is not my full-time job. I'm actually doing this as a sort of extra thing, to contribute to the state of Nevada, and it's something that I like to do. And I think that kind of covers all of that.
Sure. Yeah. So that gives the background to help to answer the question. So I think that Mr. Mueller's objections were inappropriate. And I think they were inappropriate because as defense counsel, I always say that my job as a defense attorney is to uphold the Constitution. The Sixth Amendment of the United States Constitution gives my client the right to representation, and it gives my client the right to a fair and public trial. Why would I want this trial to be, not within the public? I want it to look like we are on the up and up. My client has done nothing wrong. We have nothing to hide. And anytime that an objection of mine is not sustained or a motion of mine is not granted, I want it to look like this is some miscarriage of justice that's being done to my client. And I would play to the camera. You're not supposed to do that, really. But I would play to the camera instead of against it. And he seemed to be consistently against the camera. And I thought that it was to the point where he was disrupting his own representation of his client. He was more focused on that than he was on coming across to the jury as competent counsel. It really concerned me, in his representation.
Yeah, same here. I mean, we've had attorneys object to us before, but not usually that many times in a row. It's just one time and that's it. But but we didn't really have anything to kind of measure it against because that was our first time. So you could imagine from our perspective, we were thinking, is this going to happen in every case we try to cover?
No, and it shouldn't. It's not the norm. And as attorneys, we have to have a tough skin. I remember one time I've represented people that the media has not liked, right? Yeah. And because as a matter of course, I don't speak to the media about any active cases of mine. So anytime I have a high profile case, they usually don't like me because I'm not going to talk to them, right? So if I was representing Michael McDonald, you and I wouldn't be talking because I'm not going to disclose anything that's going to potentially hurt him later on in the future. Silence is best, right? That's my strategy. Every attorney is different. And I literally had this one journalist when I was practicing on the Eastern Shore of Maryland. My client was charged with something really bad. She was contacting me over and over again. I said, no comment, no comment. She was very annoyed with me. She was present in the courtroom. And then when she did her write-up after the first day, her commentary was very disparaging towards me. Now, mind you, I got a very good outcome for my client at the end of the case. But she phrased it as though, despite what the attorney did for him, he had this great outcome. I didn't care less. The last thing I was going to do was contact this woman or object to her presence in court or go off on her and point and scream at her while she was in court because she has nothing to do with my representation of my client. She has her job to do to write for her little newspaper, and I have my job to do, and I didn't take it personally. And he seemed to get so distracted that it seemed to be infringing on his ability to represent his client. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was strange because I felt like I try so hard not to comment, but sometimes when we're pulled into the case, I have to say something. And it did feel odd to us because we weren't a party to the case. We were just pointing a camera at the case, but it felt like we were becoming a part of the case forcefully. And it was a very awkward, uncomfortable position to be in. It's the opposite of your situation where you had the reporter trying to probe. We were trying to stay away, and we had the lawyer kind of, pulling us into the case, filing things. So it's great to hear your feedback on that. You'll never guess what the most common thing our viewers point out to us on that case. The paintings in the courtroom and the M&M dispenser on the
I noticed it too. Our judges are not as decorative.
Yeah.
Here.
And then the second most common comment, and this is outside of State v. McDonald, is that we have a tiny minority of judges who don't wear black robes. We have one that wears green and one that wears blue. Right away, people notice, and they say,
"I didn't know that. I've never seen a judge not." Our appellate court judges, Court of Appeals, it's our Supreme Court. They wear red robes,
That's
Everyone
great.
else wears black robes. I've never seen a judge in anything here other than a black robe. That's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think that there's no, it's not a standard. It's just kind of the style that these two particular judges choose. But the M&M dispenser, the paintings, and the color of the robes is
Yeah.
far and away the most common thing we get questions on.
I,
I'm
I noticed, what was that judge's name? The male judge,
Israel.
Israel. I noticed his red solo cup he had a lot. I noticed that. I found that to be very funny.
Another thing I'm curious is what do you think of our coverage of the things that are usually considered boring, like the settling of the jury instructions?
Well, that stuff is so informative, right? But
Hmm.
unfortunately, without someone to explain what's happening, a lot of people won't know why that's so important, you
Yeah.
know? Like, I spend so much time on my jury instructions,
Uh-huh.
preparing my jury instructions, anticipating what jury instructions the state will be requesting so that I can know what to object to and on what legal basis.
Hmm.
But that's real insider baseball right there. That's one of the things I like about my channel is being able to explain like this is what this means. This is why this is so important. I know this is not as like sexy as a courtroom outburst or something, but
Hmm.
this is where the sausage is made, you know,
Yeah.
like this is the product. This is what leads to the outcome.
Hmm.
So yeah, I just think that you have to keep showing that stuff because again, it brings illumination to everything, but that there is always going to be needed context to something that's that technical.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I resist very much doing is answering those questions because I do get those questions and I'm not a licensed attorney. And so
Mm-hmm.
I mean I do the best that I can for the viewers, but without attorneys like you to come on and help them out, they struggle and I mean I can't give them good answers. So maybe that's something we could talk about with our coverage of the state of Nevada versus John McDonald. Maybe we can have a few episodes with you because it looks like that one's going to blow up over here as well because of the following of Michael McDonald. It's basically flowing right into state of Nevada versus John McDonald. So I'm sure
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a ton of questions, even basic things like the sentencing people didn't understand, which even I fully don't understand.
The sentencing of Michael McDonald, yeah.
Yeah, the way that the years are applied, the ranges. I mean, I originally thought there was a range and the judge would like pick a specific time in there, but it sounds like they sentenced them to the full range and then
Mm-hmm.
it's parole or probation or
It's
something.
up to yeah, it's up to corrections basically how
Okay,
much
see, I didn't
you can
know that.
serve. Yeah, because it's gonna be based on several factors. You know, in other times, things like overcrowding would influence the range in some states. And not every state sentences with a range,
Hmm.
right? Some states sentence like this is your sentence, but then parole could make it so that you get out earlier or not, which kind of ultimately has the same effect. But when you sentence somebody within a range, what it's saying is that you can start looking at parole at this time, and then at the outer limits, if you don't get it, this is when you're going to be released. So a lot of that will be dependent on the defendant's behavior in jail or in prison. It will be dependent on, like I said, resources. Do they have some type of, halfway house for him or something like that? Is there some lesser means of incarceration? It's very, very nebulous and hard to determine exactly when he'll be out within that range. The criminal history will also play into that. So, Mr. McDonald had a very limited criminal history at the time that he went in. He had some, but it
Hmm.
was limited, compared to what he was convicted of. So it is hard to know, and it's really dependent on what, the prison is doing more than anything.
Okay, so I mean, you should probably hit me with a question now while I think of a few more for you.
Sure. So would you mind if before I hit you with a question, I am going to just thank my new members real quick.
Definitely take your time. That's what we do on
Okay,
YouTube.
thanks. So first of all, I just want to thank everyone that is present. I see that I have a $2 super chat from Matt Bond. Thank you very, very much. I see that I have 347 in revenue, so I'm not sure what the other super chat is from. But I'll try to see if I can find it. B and Mindy T is a new member. Welcome to the Lawyer Chicklets. Someone asked if I can make a tier that is not Lawyer Chicklets, but maybe I can rename the Lawyer Chicklet tier to something that is gender inclusive, because some guys don't want to be known as a lawyer chicklet. And that's understandable.
Yeah, it is.
Jenny Hicks, new member, welcome aboard to the Lawyer Chicklets. Sean Zeich, thank you very much. Welcome aboard to the Lawyer Chicklets. So thank you guys for the super chat, and welcome to our brand new little baby Lawyer Chicklets. Oh, I found the other one. Kesa Dillybar with a $1.99 super chat. Hey, Natalie, we love you and your channel. Thank you so much, Kesa. And Matt Bond says, I know dad not getting access. I know about dads not getting access all too well. Yeah, and Matt, you and I have actually talked about that. So yeah, what made you decide that you wanted to start tracking judges and what their, rate is with being overturned? Because I've actually, when I was doing the Michael McDonald coverage, I was deep diving on our Nevada judges, and I was on your Facebook page, and I saw that anytime a judge's decision would be overturned in the appellate court, you would put a percentage of how many times their decisions were either upheld or overturned by the higher court. And I thought that was so fascinating. I wish somebody would do that here, because judges like to brag about their like, some judges will say things like, I've never been overturned before, or something, which is completely like unbelievable. Even the best judges have been overturned.
It's true.
But yeah, it's inevitable, because they are human, and to be human is to err. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to know, when did you start doing that? You said, I think around 2016. What made you start doing that?
So I was actually representing myself, fighting a child custody case for custody of my son. And it took about 8 years. I went from having no contact to supervised visits to visitation to joint physical custody to primary physical custody, sole, and then I actually terminated my ex's parental rights. While I was going through that process, there were...
Oh my goodness, you can't just, okay, I'm sorry, but finish your answer, but we're going to talk about that. Okay,
I
go
like
ahead.
That, yeah. There's actually attorneys who I've interviewed who say, Alex, we need to set aside one for us to interview you, because everyone wants to know why you're doing this crazy stuff, because I'm weird. This is a weird thing to do. So while I was representing myself, the judges made many mistakes, 4 different mistakes. I filed appeals to the Supreme Court, and I got 4 of their decisions overturned representing myself. No attorney fees. I was just too poor. And then I also filed what we call a writ petition here, and I was actually published on that. And so that's etched into case law in Nevada now. So those appellate victories made me wonder if there's a system out there that keeps track, because I felt like there had to be. The judges were making all these mistakes. It doesn't make any sense. You go into court thinking they're going to do everything the way that that they're supposed to do. You don't understand, at least I didn't, as an ordinary person, that they do make that many mistakes. So I found out there was nothing. There was no statistics kept anywhere. Nobody knew. And so I decided, since I'm going to school for software engineering, I'll make the website that keeps track of their mistakes. And so I ended up creating the resource that I had hoped would exist. It didn't exist, so I made it. And that's why I decided to do our Nevada judges and the statistics and all that stuff. The coverage was really just something that I kind of thought, I've seen case law on this. I've seen news reporters' rights. I've seen Solid v. 8th Judicial District Court, and I thought to myself, I'm just going to keep this in the back of my mind. Maybe someday something will come up. And I had been monitoring the state of Nevada versus Michael McDonald. I didn't have any emotional attachment to the case at all, but I saw so many people posting about it on Facebook, and then there was all these comments on YouTube. So I thought, this is the one that I'm going to cover. And because that was so successful, I have continued to do that to this day. But yeah, you can ask me anything about my own endeavors.
If you don't mind, because I am absolutely fascinated by that. First of all, I too have been a pro se litigant. It was not for a child custody thing, but someone sued me for something stupid, and I prevailed. But I was an attorney at the time, right? And I always tell my clients, don't represent yourself. But if you're gonna do it, it seems like you want to do it how you did it, because you were very successful, right? To every rule, there is exceptions. So obviously, I know that family law attorneys can become exceedingly expensive, very expensive, especially if you were studying at the time to do something new. And, that's going to be really, really tough. So you decided that you were going to represent yourself.
Right. That's what I
Yeah.
did. I mean, you know what? You say decided like I had a choice. I
You
didn't.
didn't have a choice.
I mean, I guess I could have chose between representing myself and just quitting, and I just never saw that as a choice. So
Yeah.
it was really I probably was making 15 to 20,000 a year. I mean, I was a student at
Mm-hmm.
UNR, University of
Mm-hmm.
Nevada, Reno. So I represented myself because that's the only thing I could do aside from just not even trying. And yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of sayings out there that are opposed to it. I think it's frustrating for a lot of people because a lot of people just can't afford an attorney, and so they just don't do anything. They just
Right.
yeah, it's disappointing,
Right.
but that's not what I did, and I'm glad that I did what I did because in the end it really did benefit my family and my son. And it was a tough case. I actually don't mind talking about it because I already published the entire case on a separate channel anyway. So the
Mm-hmm.
whole case is already I've self-published it, and I felt like it was something that I was going to have to do because if I was going to do this for our Nevada judges, I would need to be as transparent as possible.
Okay, that's very fair. Um, did you feel as though you were in any way discriminated against or treated differently because you, as the non-custodial parent, you were the father seeking more visitation and custody? Um, because you said at first you had, what was it, just visitation?
Supervised.
Supervised visitation. And so for those of you, it's very, I actually have some personal experience with a loved one who is going through a custody dispute right now. And I think that because he's the father in the situation, he's really getting short shrift. So it starts out as supervised visits. For those of you that are not aware, that's usually reserved for people that have some type of history of either abuse towards the domestic partner or the child. But I have seen in actual practice that it's just been applied to non-custodial fathers, like as though their default seen as somehow, and I don't know if this is your situation or not, but their default seen as like dangerous or something with no evidence to support that. Just erring on the side of caution, this father who should have just as much rights to their child as the mother has to be supervised while they're visiting with their child. Did you find that that was your experience or no?
Well, I did actually, and exactly for the reasons that you described, which is it was the sort of default position that fathers are dangerous and that to err on the side of caution, let's put me on supervised visits. It did feel like that. I mean, it was that, basically. The only thing that I'll give the judge credit for is that he did set it up so that it would automatically transition out of supervised visits without having to go back to court. And I felt like he was just doing that to appease my ex. There is an issue sometimes with what I call best interest of the parents, where I feel that I guess it seems as though the parents are the ones that can litigate, and so sometimes the judges try to appease the parents, and it's not always what's best for the child. But I felt like this was a situation where I was unrepresented. She had an attorney, and the attorney had to get something. So that I mean, I do see some gender bias, but I see more self-representation bias for sure than gender bias. Other states may have more serious issues in the gender bias area, and there are a few judges who have reputations that are not good. But I think most of the judges in Nevada at this point don't seem to show gender bias when it comes to custodial designations. And I add that and emphasize that because there are other areas of the law where they have wide latitude. For example, the sanction they're going to impose for contempt, there does appear to be significant differences depending on the gender of the contemnor. And typically, the more discretion, you'll see more gender bias in the state. That's what I've noticed. But when it comes to the custodial designation, it looks like most of the judges, are doing what they should be doing, consistent with the Supreme Court's rulings and consistent with changes to our law. But yeah, I did experience that at the beginning, and it did feel because it felt to me like it was just by default. Let's just make sure everything's okay, and it was just because I was the father at the time. That's what it felt like to me.
Did you take that as personally offensive, or did you understand that this is the game that I have to play in order to get what I need. Like if I can show that I can do this, then I can move on to the next step of, my ultimate goal of having a complete relationship with my child. Or were you just, offended by it?
I was offended.
I can understand either way. I think I would be personally offended,
Yeah.
So,
Well, I was offended by it, but that's because the facts of the case were, and again, this case is already published. This is a situation where the facts of the case showed that she had actually taken actions to harm herself, and there was no other showing in the case. So to me, it seemed like we were in bizarro land. It was maybe one third offense, and it was 2/3 disillusioned, because I went into court thinking that the judge was going to be like Gandalf the Grey from Lords of the Ring, just spouting all this wisdom, and it really seemed to me like he wasn't a very remarkable individual at all. I'm not trying to insult him and say he was stupid or something, but what I realized was this is an ordinary person with a lot of prejudices, and later on, in hindsight now, I can see that there is quite a bit of arm twisting and what you called it, the game. There is I can see more of that now, and that just, it seems to me that just has to do with who the judges see all the time, and attorneys or colleagues, and that goes back to self-representation bias. Just not having an attorney, you just have, I guess what they call in Vegas, you have no juice. That's what they call it here. No reputation, no power, no leverage. And cases shouldn't be impacted that way, but they are. And it's not, I don't like to see that. I did notice, though, that the higher you go, the less that's apparent. I always felt like the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court of Nevada were on the up and up. I always felt like they didn't care if I was a nobody. If I was right, they were going to reverse the decision, and if I was wrong, they weren't. And, I kind of like that I wandered into this area, because a lot of people wonder if I created our Nevada judges because of the 2 family court judges that made so many mistakes. And actually, the reason I created our Nevada judges was not because of the harm that 2 judges inflicted on me, so much as how much the justices of the Supreme Court impressed me. If I didn't see the justices of the Supreme Court and later the Court of Appeals judge do what they do, I wouldn't have created this project. So it was much more a positive motivator than it was a negative when it came to really putting work into it. I know that it was really simple at first, but over time, that's what's kind of fueled me to keep going.
That's so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I would love to know what your other channel is, so that I could get, updated on that.
Sure.
Did you, did your personal experience with Nevada family courts in any way, at least initially, influence how you interpreted the McDonald v. McDonald case, or the Nevada v. McDonald case?
Yeah, it very much did. I mean, I didn't watch anywhere near as many of the domestic relations matters hearings that other people have. I saw little bits and pieces of them. But my knowledge and understanding of high conflict child custody did influence my decision to cover that. It was one of the factors. And even to this day, we have other cases that we're covering that also spill over from high conflict child custody cases. 3 other cases that are covered on our channel. So yes, it very much did influence me. It very much did.
Do you want to get some questions from the chat and see?
Yeah, I mean, my chat is blowing up over here.
Okay, let's start with your chat then, because I've addressed my people, and then we can go to my people next. I would love to hear what the people on your chat are saying.
Okay, so Pollyanna is asking which McDonald's. She specifically says, is this the famous McDonald family in Vegas? And I guess the only way I can answer that is yes. As you can see, multiple compliments to you. Some of your viewers are posting in our Facebook, which is cool. Let's see here.
Hey.
We have, Pollyanna's asking if you're the Maryland lawyer, which I believe you are in Maryland, correct?
Yes, I am in Maryland. I'm a Maryland lawyer.
We have greetings from Rebecca, from Trixie, who's both a big fan of both of our channels. We have, let's see here, Nathan W says he follows both of us and wakes up in the mornings to have his coffee and catch up on your videos specifically. See here, Stacy Murphy's popping in from your channel just to say hi and that she subscribed. Let's see. I'm trying to catch up. Pam is asking if Michael McDonald is still incarcerated, and the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
Jerry Butler's asking about John McDonald. I have an event video, Jerry. You can watch the event video. It's on YouTube and Facebook, and it tells you the details of the state of Nevada versus John McDonald. But just off of the top of my head, he was charged with 19 counts of lewdness with a child, and if I remember correctly, 2 of those were removed or stricken via what they call a pre-trial petition for writ of habeas corpus. I've never seen that before. I don't know if you want to talk about that. 2 of the
charges have been dismissed.
Yeah, and that was before we were covering. I wish we could have covered that. Let's see. Pam wants us to talk more about the case. Let's see. Carol says that we're both doing really well.
Thanks, Carol.
Yeah, I'm not used to this much interaction on my channel. I can't imagine. Yours must be a sea of comments. So, yeah, that catches us up. What do you have on your end?
Okay, so right now I have to go into full screen so I can see it well. Give me 1 second. We left off with the 199 super chat from Case of Dilly Bar. Thank you again. Jess True Crime Fan with the 499 super chat. Thank you, Jess. Paisley Tremblay is a new member to the Lawyer Chicklets. Welcome, Paisley. Hey, boo. Matt Bond with the $2 Australian super chat. Thank you. I need to get in touch with Alex ASAP. Yeah, Alex, Matt would love to talk with you. Maybe I can share socials with you guys. Matt and I talk all the time. He's a cool person, and he's very much had to deal with the system. So I know that he knows what it's like. I want to go to the regular chat right now, the non-super chat, and thank all of my moderators that are currently there. Thank you guys so much, guys. Make sure that you thank the moderators. I see a comment from Catherine Siverts. Can we take a moment and recognize the awesomeness that is Marissa S., always being on it in the chat and making sure everyone has the info for everything. Marissa S. is one of my moderators, and she is like a super moderator. She's amazing. She's amazing. I love her. I love Miss Mandy 777. I love Catherine Siverts. Thank you all so much for being continuous, amazing supporters and moderators. Just Seen It says this interview and subject matter is awesome. Thank you, Just Seen It. Miss Mandy 777 is telling people how this is a very tight-knit group. It took her months to start talking in the chat, and now she can't shut up. And I love that because I can never shut up. You're one of us now. One of us. Male members or masculine members or male identifying members can be lawyer warriors. I like that, Ames 89. Thank you. Thank you so much. Guys, thank you all so much. I see the members in there dropping all the emojis, and this is the first time we've had a live stream since I made membership available, so thank you all so much. They're putting links, the moderators, to our Nevada judges for them to go and check you out and subscribe.
Excellent.
Is it possible, Alex, that you can either put in the description box of this video or your chat the link to your case brief or case analysis on the other McDonald? What's his name again? John? Is it John?
Oh, yeah, I could actually. Yeah, it's.
Yeah, why don't you share that so people can, as soon as they get off of here, they can go watch that. I know that's going to be my evening watching. Please excuse me for the lozenge. I can't help it. I have a sore throat. But is that McDonald, while you're posting that, I'll ask you this. Is that McDonald, the brother, the same brother that Michael was trying to get to sign a lease to pretend as though he lived in the house to keep Candace from selling the house while Michael was in prison? Do you know about that little detail?
So yeah, I heard some I've heard stuff but I haven't gone deep enough into the family court case. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
even know, I really don't even know all of the siblings and all of that.
Mhm.
The only in-depth knowledge I have is of the criminal proceeding.
Of the criminal case.
And this
Uh-huh.
just underlines to me why we do need to start figuring out how to cover the domestic relations matters. It has
You're
to
missing
happen.
too much. You have to have it. It gives so
It's,
much context to the criminal case.
yeah.
So right now, Michael McDonald's brother is charged for those offenses that Alice just mentioned. And they're pending trial, right? Well, there was an earlier point in time when Michael was in jail for assault on Candace and like her family, unrelated to the case that he's currently in prison for right now. And Michael had been refusing to sign the refinance papers so that Candace could get her portion of the proceeds from the sale of the house, because he didn't want to sell the house. He wanted to refinance the house and give her half of the value of the refinancing. He wanted to keep the house. But what he really wanted to do was just delay the divorce, because he never wanted to divorce Candace. That's what it was really all about. He wanted to hold her there and keep her from getting divorced. So Judge Hardcastle ordered that the house be sold. And the house was ordered sold. And so what he tried to do on recorded jail phone calls was get his brother to pretend as though he was living in the house. The same brother, I believe the same brother that's currently in jail right now facing these charges, or currently facing these really serious charges. And obviously the brother had never lived in the house, but he was like lying and saying that his brother had lived in the house and that they would have to evict the brother in order to get him out, and therefore they could not sell the house. So it was interesting how like even the brother was brought into the family law case, the underlying divorce case, at least tangentially, you know?
Yeah, you know, I don't, even though I don't know if that's occurred, I can say this is that in a high conflict child custody case, that's not the exception, that's the rule. Pulling in all sorts of different people and machinations and delay tactics, and that would be consistent with why I decided to go into the criminal case. And it's too bad that things like that weren't covered, because I think when the criminal case started, there were some arguments from defense counsel about the defendant being more of a victim and not being treated right. But from what you're describing to me and from what actually occurred, that was just sort of out of the boundaries of what I could put a camera on. Right. That wasn't the case at all. And and so that's, I mean, I keep going back to that frustration of just not, this is just blind spots that are not even just a small part of the State v. McDonald, but like it's the whole foundation of the case. And
right. So, and it's what Mueller was hoping for, to play up with the judges and the jury, hoping that they would really have no understanding of what the underlying family law case was. Now, in fairness to Mueller, he didn't represent McDonald in the family case. He represented him once things got out of hand and he was charged with the burglary and the contempt, and then all these other things started spiraling. But he wasn't in the underlying family case. So it's possible that he didn't go pull up every transcript or watch every video and apprise himself, and was just going off of what McDonald said. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt in that way. But that is, despite what Mueller's intentions may have been, that was factually inaccurate. McDonald was a predator and a perpetrator throughout the entirety of the underlying family case, the custody case, the divorce case. And by that, I mean, it was predation, because he took every single opportunity to thwart the process of facilitating the divorce, facilitating custody. He would do anything to sabotage the divorce process because he did not want it to happen, you know? And he consistently lied about it. He never stopped lying, you know? So you just, to make it seem as though, oh, he was unrepresented, this is something Mueller said. He was pro se, he didn't know what was going on. No. Mr. McDonald had plenty of attorneys. He couldn't keep an attorney because some of it was finances, but also some of it was just his attorney-client relationships were clearly breaking down because he wanted to do things that the attorneys found objectionable.
Mm-hmm.
There was one guy I remember that was just like, Mr. McDonald wants to take this case a certain way, and I'm not doing that. I'm not taking the case that way. You know,
Yeah, I remember that was actually attorney Alex Gabato, and the only reason I remembered that is because he actually did interview on Our Nevada Judges.
I saw that interview.
Yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, it just is outrageous how when people can't see exactly what's going on. I mean, even myself, all we have to go off of is what somebody like you would say with something like your channel. And this kind of brings me to I guess the other side that was portraying a different argument, which is the Veterans in Politics group. I found it, and some of my viewers reached out to me about the blurb that you put into, I think, part 2 of your coverage. Were you surprised by the message that you got from Steve Sanson questioning your balanced coverage of it, or was that something that you kind of expected?
I anticipated it because I was actually very familiar with Mr. Sanson because I've been following the family case, and I've been watching a lot of these Nevada family cases, and he would be there in the background, and a lot of the stuff would come from Mr. Sanson's own channel. So he would post a lot of this content, and he was pro non-custodial parent, pro dad. And for the most part, I don't have any problem with that. I'm okay with that. I'm a defense attorney, so I'm all about like the underdog in the situation.
Mm-hmm.
But his titles would always be misleading, and by that it would be like, judge clearly lies, doesn't know what they're doing, and then I was like, oh really? And then you'd watch the video, and that's not what happened at all in court.
Mm-hmm.
And so he clearly has like a political bend to his own channel coverage, like what he does on his channel. And he has a group of ardent followers. And so when he emailed me, and then some other man that's associated with him, who's an attorney out of California, now lives in Nevada, he started contacting me and like basically harassing me. I wasn't at all surprised by it. The only thing that I was a little disappointed with Mr. Sanson, because I expected that he would say, you don't know what you're talking about. Here's something else you should consider. Mm-hmm. But all he said was, your coverage is very biased. He didn't tell me how. He didn't tell me why. He didn't tell me if I was inaccurate, in what way I was inaccurate. He just made an ad hominem attack. And so I just said, okay, well, I'm not responding to that because there's nothing to respond to. Like, You think it's biased, you're entitled to your opinion, but what about what I said is inaccurate?
Right.
Nothing, So I was disappointed that he didn't have anything more to contribute than that, but not surprised. But it was also kind of surreal because, again, the last few years, this is just material that I've been watching. This has been entertainment for me, to be totally honest. And so to see the people that you've watched and said, wow, that's crazy, that's happened, reach out to you personally is a surreal experience. It's very strange. It's just like, here I am, miles and miles away in a totally different time zone, and you're reaching out to me. So,
I mean, I've had similar experiences individually and the organization, both with both individuals, and it's because both of their cases have been covered. Steve Sanson individually, and then some of his followers, and then even the attorney from California. We're covering Todd Matthew Phillips versus Mark DiCiero, and the hearings are all.
That's him, Todd Matthew Phillips. Yeah. That's right.
And the thing that's especially frustrating for me is we publish all the videos. The only commentary is the event video, and we're talking like 5 minutes max. Most of the coverage is just the hearings. And I mean, I've been beyond frustrated of with the perspective that the opponents of our Nevada judges have, and I just can't understand it. From your perspective, you're saying, show me what I did wrong. From my perspective, all I did was report and publish everything.
Oh, they're just shooting the messenger, right? You're just holding up the mirror, and they don't like the reflection. You're holding up the mirror to them, and they don't like the reflection back on them. That's all it is. For me, it makes more sense because I actually provide a personal opinion and legal analysis,
Mm-hmm.
right? I never leave out the fact that, people will say, oh, you're so unbiased. And I always correct them and say, no, I have biases. I try to address them and
Mm-hmm.
tell you I'm biased about this, or this is my opinion on this. This is my political leaning, my personal leaning.
Mm-hmm.
But here's what I think legally speaking is the best argument for defense and prosecution. That's what I try to do. So if someone says I'm biased, it's not insulting. That's totally fine. I'm doing this in my personal capacity. I'm not Fox News or CNN. I'm not trying to pretend as though I'm unbiased. That's what both of them do, in my opinion, pretend as though they're unbiased. But with you, I've watched a lot of your, McDonald stuff. And it was just, this is what happened in court. Here it is, live streamed. And then you would do like a summary wrap-up video with, this week, this is what happened in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hear a single opinion being expressed. In order for anyone to say that the coverage is biased, all you are covering is what happened. And it's very rich coming from someone like Mr. Sampson and Mr. Phillips, who, especially Mr. Sampson, who has his own channel, who literally adds a biased title and description to everything that he puts up, trying to frame what it is that's happened. It's usually largely inaccurate. So I just think it's the pot calling the kettle black. It's shooting the messenger, can't take the heat, get out the kitchen. It's all of that stuff.
It is, yeah. I've never really cared for the outcome of any of the cases. And so that's one, what you describe is I completely agree with. And some of our viewers and even close supporters ask why I don't do more commentary, more coverage and stuff in the sense of opinion pieces. And I always wanted to show people the process, the machine itself, the beginning to the end, and I've never cared for the outcome. And one of the other things that I didn't get to mention is when I get attacked, our Nevada judges specifically, it's almost like they think I knew what the outcome was going to be, because I always stop and take a step back and go, I really don't know what's going to happen. It's as though almost the opponents of the organization are the ones that know what the outcome is going to be, and they don't want that to be seen. It's something that I'm starting to slowly but surely get used to and adapt to, but it's definitely one of the things that I struggled with for the past 2 years, because I put so much effort into just trying to educate, yet no matter how much I try to, attacks continue. So that's a little bit of extra for me on this topic, but I'm glad we got to talk about it. I didn't plan to talk about this. It's the thing about live streams is sometimes they go sideways.
Yeah, I don't see this as going sideways.
In a fun way.
Yeah, it's a sideways in a good way. Let's just put it that way. Okay, well, you want to wrap it?
Yeah, I think we've done an hour. I'm sure that we'll be able to do more in the future.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good time to stop, and we can go over the comments and see what kind of responses we get. But I'm definitely going to have you, come back on and help out with questions. I'm going to try to cover jury instructions. What I'm going to do is just get audio only if the judges will allow us, because I think that would be really cool.
Yeah.
Because I've heard that it's not just the jury instructions. Sorry, did I say jury selection? Did I say that?
Selection.
I don't know.
Jury selection.
I want to get selection and the instructions, and I want to see if you can come on and kind of go over that and help.
I would love to. Jury selection. I covered jury selection in the Derek Chauvin trial.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And basically as it was happening, I would do a live stream and just be like, this is what just happened. This is what this means. This is what this, person just, I started my coverage of that, at the end of jury selection. And I was just like, well, one juror said this and one juror said that. Yeah. And so, I'm thinking we have this many conservative and this many liberal. And so I think it's really, really important to pay attention to jury selection in a trial. So let me get to my super chats real quick.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. And then I think we can,
we'll do our goodbyes.
do our goodbyes. Yeah, I want to make sure that these people get all the love that they deserve. We have a new member, Jennifer Edwards. Hey Boo, welcome to the Lawyer Chicklets. Thank you very much. Lawyer Warriors is definitely gonna have to be it for the dudes. Jesse Green, but then ladies are gonna want to be Lawyer Warriors. I hope to be a warrior lawyer with these braces. I might not be able to say it. Early October, just have to see how I did on the bar. Jesse Green, good luck on the bar. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Nancy Robinson, new member. Thank you so much. Welcome to Lawyer Chicklets. Matt Bond with a $2 Australian super chat. Thank you. At Cat Attack, how can we start a project in our state? Catherine Silver to the $2 super chat. Thank you very much. Thanks for this live, Natalie. Thank you for being here, Catherine. How can we start a project in our state? By a project, are we talking about monitoring judges to see what their success rate is? Because I want someone to come do that in my state.
I already set it up. Our Maryland judges is live, but there's no administrators, so it's just sitting there inert. There's nobody running it. But the site's already up and the code's there. We could talk about that another day, I think.
I can put you in touch with court watchers and our they watch the judges to see like what their different things are. We have some like celebrity court watchers and stuff like that. It's crazy over here, but they don't have that what you have figured out. So it's very amazing, and I'm very impressed by it, and I commend you. I'm really impressed by it.
I'm impressed by your channel. You have such a huge following, and you're teaching them about the law, which is the same thing that I'm trying to do. So I appreciate everything you're doing with your channel. There's a lot of attorneys who it's scary to go on camera, especially all the time, like you do. And you still go and you still do that and you still teach people about the law. And I think that's something that's important. And I hope that in the information age, we see more attorneys like you coming on camera to teach people the actual details of the law. And I'm looking forward to doing another collaboration with you.
I'm excited about it. Thank you so much.